as you say, no question is ever silly.
No question is ever silly, Mark.
Why do we get scared?
We have to thank our ancestors for this, all the way back through the millennia, because we wouldn't exist if our ancestors weren't wary of threat. They hung around and they were wary enough, long enough, and were able to be activated when threat came in order to stay alive long enough for us and all of the watchers to survive. So what happens is when we perceive threat, our fight or flight response, which is this chemical cocktail to prepare us to behave in a particular way, to escape from a threat, kicks in. Now, it kicks in before we even realise it has, and so much of it operates on an unconscious level. So there's this chemical cocktail of hormones that are released, like adrenaline, like dopamine, like even oxytocin, the love hormone, but we'll come to that later on, when we get scared. And it activates us. So it gives us a rush. But it's designed to protect us. Now, there are certain things, like Zainab was talking earlier on about, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. And throughout the ages, we have learned to be wary of things like rats or things like insects. And it's built into our genetic code because they would pose a threat to our ancestors in the past by carrying disease. So that's why we get the ick when we see things like that.
Because they're dangerous, like, as well. And spiders, you know, some will kill you, but some are just so harmless. Even though they look scary, they just look creepy and everything.
Okay. Well, yeah, I know. Like, we've got horror films, we've got true crime podcasts and stuff like this. Really, really popular. Does that explain why there's such a big appetite for it?
There's a huge appetite. Think about that rush that we get. So now, what's interesting about these things is a horror film is like playing with our emotion of fear, okay? Because we feel all of these adrenaline rushes. We get this real chemical cocktail given to us when we're in that scene, or we feel like we're in that scene where there's anticipation of bad things happening. And that's a huge thing within a film, is that it's not necessarily the gore, it's not necessarily the bad thing happening, but it's what our mind does is fills in the gaps. We're not necessarily afraid of the dark, but we're afraid of what the dark represents, what could be happening. We're not afraid of the rustle of the trees, or we're not afraid of the doors or floors creaking, but what does that anticipation of threat do to us? It gets us to sit on the edge of our seat. And hide behind the cushions.
Because I would think, like a podcast, like you will listen to a podcast or you might read a book. Your mind starts creating the pictures, whereas the movie does it for you. Whereas I would find that much scarier, a podcast or a book.
It's what our mind does. It starts to play tricks on us, and it fills in the blanks that we can't see or we don't do. Some of the best horror films don't have a lot of gore in them, don't have a lot of really scary things, but what they do is they build tension.
It's like really,
really well. Completely. They get us on the edge of our seat. Like Zainab said, I was exhausted at the end of that film. Why? Because our fight or flight system is kicking in 21 times in the first 10 minutes.
It is exhausting. And I actually personally love, and it sounds a bit weird to say, but I love horror films. And I have since I was a very young child. I used to actually get I won't say who, but older people to go to the video shop to rent out the over 18 so I could watch Freddy Krueger on Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, so I watched them from a young age, basically. But they haven't affected me.
Seeker.
I love them. Now, how come I love horror and Martin here hates horror films?
I don't see the point of it.
Why is that?
No, wouldn't put myself through it. No.
There's studies gone into this looking at the sensation-seeking aspect of this. Now, it's interesting because you differ, because like what the researchers would be telling us is that actually males of particular are more sensation-seeking, would be more into horror films than females. But it would be that need to have that adrenaline rush and that you can detach yourself better from it. Now, the reason you don't like them is because you just don't see the point in them.
So you're not
why would you pay money to go to the cinema to have the bejesus frightened out of you?
But there are people who empathise too much with them. Now, when I mentioned earlier on about the play aspect of horror films, and this is interesting because we know that we're not being threatened.
Yeah.
So that's the important part of it.
It's not real. It's like,
no,
it's just
think about any extreme sports person, right? They will always talk about managing risk and making sure that they're following safety methods so that we are going into that space, we are getting that chemical rush, but we are safe. There's no crack in danger, in real danger, where we're actually being threatened. There is loads of crack in feeling threatened, but being on front of the couch beside our loved ones.
Yeah. It's funny because my son on a first date took a girl to see a scary movie, and I said, "Why would you do that?" And he said, "Why do you think?"
Oh yeah.
The oxytocin release afterwards is one of the biggest factors.
Oh, it's more her cuddling into him when she goes,
yeah, that's it. The love hormone is there. So that hormone builds social bonding. It's given to mums when they are in labour to induce labour. It's what's released when we're cozy with our loved ones. And it's also released after horror films. So of course your son is a very, very wise first dater.
Very smart. Go to the top of the class, son.
Yeah. So what makes a really, scary horror film or a brilliant Halloween costume? Like what does it take?
Scary films are built on anticipation of tension. That idea that we're going to induce this fight or flight state within you, or freeze. Yeah, we could completely freeze within that. Think about Jaws. They do that with soundtracks.
Yes.
Like do. It mimics our heartbeat. Do.
The Psycho as well. Yeah.
Psycho, the exact same. And what they'll do is they'll pair particular sounds and particular music with danger. We know instinctively. And remember I said that fight or flight response kicks in unconsciously.
Yeah.
So we might know, I know that it's tomato ketchup that's on the screen, but I am really, really tense and I feel really scared. So a lot of those really good films play on this anticipation of danger. Filling in the gaps that aren't there. They'll have lots. It'll always be dark. It'll always be stormy. There'll always be, leaves rustling, and there'll be creaky floorboards because they build that tension. That's one of the really important aspects of a horror film.
And there's loads of horror films. There's so much horror on TV at the minute, isn't it? It's just everywhere. They're just making loads of it again. It must be very popular. I'll be watching it anyway.
OK, well, you will. You can tell me about it, because I won't. We're going to take it. Thanks for now, Pádraig. We're going to take a very quick break, but come back to us, because after this, Kwanje Chan will be making spring rolls, fried wonton, dumplings, sesame prawn toast. We're starving.
Well, we'll see you.
Pepsi